What is going on, pro wrestling fans? Welcome back to the J area. My name is Jose Ramos Jr. And on this week's Friday 5 count, I wanted to have it coincide with this past week's episode of the J area podcast. Of course, if you haven't checked out that episode, I highly suggest you do so, where we talk about Eddie Guerrero. It is now 19 years since the passing of Eddie Guerrero, and I thought on today's Friday 5 count, why not celebrate 5 of my favorite memories regarding Latino Heat, one of the greatest of all time, Eddie Guerrero. But before we begin the list, make sure you frog splash that subscribe button to keep up to date with all the pro wrestling content that is produced on this channel. And with that being said, let's go and start with number 5. For me, one of the best memories of Eddie Guerrero's run, certainly within the WWE, was that of his partnership with the ninth wonder of the world, China. In the year 2000, Eddie Guerrero debuts with the Radicals alongside Dean Malenko, Benoit, and Perry Saturn, jumping ship from WCW in what was a major move at the time. You see, at that point, a lot of WWF superstars were jumping over to WCW for those guaranteed contracts. But the one thing that Bischoff and company didn't count on was the mid-carders. Guys like the Radicals, who I mentioned, Chris Jericho as well, would jump over to the WWE in search of better opportunities. And one of the guys to really capitalize on this newfound opportunity was Eddie Guerrero, who really endeared himself to the WWE audience by not only demonstrating his athletic ability, but also putting on his charisma for everyone to see. He turned out to be one of the greatest acquisitions during that era of the Monday Night Wars, because not only did he demonstrate that he could be a great heel or a great babyface, but he had comedic timing unlike anyone else. You side him with China as he attempts to gain her favor and seduce her with his Latino heat, and you have Eddie Guerrero making for one of the best gimmicks coming out of the 2000s. He had these moments where he would have the roses and trying to make her smile, trying to make it to prom on time during the pay-per-view Backlash in 2000. And all this culminated, of course, in him turning heel and in classic Eddie Guerrero fashion, finding another lady to hang out with, ditching China, and it really set in motion what the lying, cheating, and stealing would become for Eddie Guerrero. And with that being said, of course, let's jump into number 4. And that would be his run with his nephew, Chavo Guerrero, in the tag team, of course, Los Guerreros. One of the key figures in those early years of SmackDown, we talk about the SmackDown 6, that included Chavo, Eddie, Ray, Edge, Kurt Angle, and Benoit. Those combinations of those 6 superstars really drove home why SmackDown at that time was seen as the better show, better than Monday Night Raw. See, at that time, Monday Night Raw was seen as the show that had the stories, very story driven, but SmackDown was where you had the action in the ring. One week you might see Eddie versus Ray, another week you could see Chavo versus Edge, Benoit and Angle, any combination of those 6 superstars, and you were guaranteed to have a highlight reel. But of course, that wasn't just the only benefit of pairing Chavo and Eddie together. They also won the WWE Tag Team Champions multiple times over. Their tag team partnership would span from 2002 all the way to the spring of 2004, right where we got the heel turn of Chavo Guerrero on Eddie Guerrero. But you see, that memories of them together really highlighting not only the tag team division, but again, it gave another opportunity to highlight Eddie and push him up the card. Eventually, he would become a main eventer after, but one of the memories that really sticks with me are those vignettes where Eddie and Chavo are causing mischief, wreaking havoc on whatever town they were on, whether or not they were faking being the pool boys, whether they were pretending to be valet, or even all those classic memories of when they were lying, cheating, and stealing. It is a memory to this day that I still smile upon whenever I come across a video on social media. And of course, I mentioned that partnership had ended in 2004, but in 2005, we reached our number 3 list here on the 5 count. And of course, if you're not new to the channel, if you're familiar with the content that I talk about, this comes as no surprise. But at number 3, I have his memorable feud with Rey Mysterio in 2005. Of course, it starts off at No Way Out, where they're a partnership. They win the tag titles. They have a great opening matchup at WrestleMania 21, and Eddie Guerrero begins to develop this obsession with defeating Rey Mysterio. He just can't get it done. He wonders to himself, what is it that I have to do to beat Rey Mysterio? And it becomes so personal with him that not only does he jump his best friend, but he pulls Dominic Mysterio into the storyline, revealing to the whole world that Dominic is not the legitimate son of Rey Mysterio, rather that Eddie Guerrero is the father. And it culminates in the, I would say classic, but it's the infamous custody of Dominic ladder match at SummerSlam 2005. Whenever these two were involved, you were guaranteed to have a great matchup. Again, whether it was at Judgment Day, the Great American Bash, SummerSlam, they even closed out their feud in a steel cage match on a memorable episode of the first ever Friday Night SmackDown. And it's still a feud that really shaped my fandom of professional wrestling, and it's really why I prefer the SmackDown brand over the Raw brand. But as we transition into the number 2 spot on this week's 5 count, we stick with Eddie and Rey, and how can I not talk about Eddie Guerrero without one of the greatest matches of all time, Halloween Havoc 1997, voted as Match of the Year in 1997, putting on full display what WCW's Cruiserweight division was all about. And at that time, not a lot of people gave credit to Mysterio or Guerrero. In fact, who would have thought that these two individuals would go on to be one of the greatest, pairings in terms of matchup chemistry, but also future world champions, both Hall of Famers in their right, and they really showcased their talents here together. I talk about chemistry, and it seemed like everything in this matchup was just flawless. One of the greatest acts in this matchup, of course, is where Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio are able to pull off this maneuver where it's almost like a seesaw, where Eddie Guerrero has Rey Mysterio underneath him, and they kind of propel Rey Mysterio onto the top rope, delivers a moonsault into a DDT maneuver, and I swear, it's probably one of those moves that you have seen at some point during your fandom. If you haven't, I'm shocked. And if you haven't, you gotta go out of your way and make sure to check out this matchup. It's one of the best matches you'll ever see. And again, it's one of those matches that puts forward what wrestling would become. It's become the blueprint for what a lot of guys are doing, in wrestling nowadays. These two have solidified themselves as two of the greatest of all time, and this matchup is proof for it. But of course, at number 1, it's the classic No Way Out 2004 event where Eddie Guerrero would defeat Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship, becoming the champion. It was a great feel-good moment. Obviously, if you had followed Eddie Guerrero throughout his career, you would see the highs and the lows. You would see him coming from WCW, seeking better opportunity in WWE, but unfortunately, the addiction would get the better of him. They would have to release Eddie Guerrero. He would climb back up, regain his position in the WWE, re-endear himself with management and the crowd through his Los Guerreros tag team, and then eventually earning his spot at the main event, and then defeating Brock Lesnar for the WWE champion. It was a beautiful moment. It happened in the Cow Palace of San Francisco. Me, of course, being a San Francisco fan, it holds a special place in my heart as well. And then what culminated would become him defending the title against Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 20, memorable matches against John Bradshaw Layfield, and even putting him over as the next big villain on the SmackDown brand. Eddie Guerrero winning the WWE Championship is one of the greatest moments of all time, and then as well as the celebration that had taken place on the SmackDown afterwards, it's a beautiful moment, and it's why we as wrestling fans keep coming back to this wonderful business, because it makes us feel something. And every time I see Eddie Guerrero in the ring holding that championship, or even on the outside in the crowd with his mom, with his brother, holding the title, it's just a beautiful sight to see. But hey, I want to hear from you guys. What are some of your all-time favorite Eddie Guerrero moments that I mentioned on this list? Are there some that I left off? And if I did, go ahead and sound off in the comments below, and make sure you like the video, you share the video, and make sure you hit a 3 amigos on the subscribe button to keep up to date with all the pro wrestling content on this channel. And of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr., and I'll see you guys in the next one.